Hello everyone, Almin with you again with another video tutorial. This time we're going to be covering how to create this kind of wind simulation within 3dsMax. So let's say you have the city, you're designing some tall building, and you did this simulation in sim scale, for example, and you just want to show to your client how it will actually be blowing around the building. So that's kind of thing that I'm gonna show you how to do using TyFlow and 3dsMax. So let's move on to the brand new file where we're gonna be recreating this from scratch. Okay. So first of all, let's create some base. For example, if this is part of your city, we just press F4 to show our grid, and let's give it give a bit more segments to this plane, just to make it a bit more like a city, to look like a city. So that's our grid, and let's, for example, now move on to our top view, and if we want to maybe convert this to editable poly, and if we want to maybe delete some of those areas that are going to actually be representing our streets. So for example, let's say delete this one and this one, and let's maybe delete this one and this one. Okay, right. And if we, for example, apply some greeble on those little planes that we just created. So greeble is modifier that will allow us to have to create the area that looks like a city, but it's actually just so you can play here with many settings, and yeah, so that's pretty much what we want to say. And let's say, for example, we are doing our building somewhere this corner. We are actually having some much taller building than than the rest. So if we move to our perspective view, yeah, so we just want to see, for example, we just want to visually pardon, we just want to visually represent how the wind will will fly around our building. So in order to do that, we're gonna basically have to create some planes on the side, which are gonna be we are gonna use as we can use them as a starting point of our wind. So let's make it vertical, for example. Yeah, that should be good enough. And if we move it a bit up, yeah, okay. So the next thing we're gonna have to do, like as you saw on this picture, so there are those rays that are actually going around the building. So we're gonna be trying to simulate that. So we're gonna first create a line. Let's make it smooth, and let's click on Bezier here. And if we click for example, something like this, and like this, like we can further modify this. So if we click on the line, we're gonna bring it up a little bit, and if we go in the modifiers here, and if we select vertices, we're going to be able to move each of those vertices individually and to position them to make our simulation look a bit more realistic. So maybe let's move all of those, the plane together with this spline. Now, okay. So that's basically the splines that are gonna be, that our TyFlow gonna be following. So let's bring some some TyFlow inside. So if we go to create and we go to standard primitives and we click on TyFlow, let's just place it here. Oops, we don't need a second one. Right, so if we select that one, we go to modifiers and we click open editor. That will bring us this window here that I'm gonna just put on side, just for you to see what I'm doing on here. So basically we're gonna place some birds. That is actually how you start doing anything in TyFlow. And in birds, let's put maybe 150 particles. And next thing we're gonna have to bring in is position object. So if you position object, so the easiest way to find position object is if you just type P on your keyboard. That will bring you up to any of those options that are starting with P. So if you place P in there, and if we pick our plane that we created, we can see that some particles have started to appearing in there. Let's maybe bring this up a little bit, because it's gonna, the subject of our exercise here is to just create a particles that are going around this building here, not around the bottom part, as that will be a bit more complex scenario. So next thing we're gonna have to do is let's maybe make those particles not as a small dots, but as some kind of geometry, because we're gonna, yeah, I'll show you later why I did this. So the next thing we'll have to do, we'll have to create, we'll have to make those geometry points to follow this line. So in order to do that, we're gonna have to bring up the path follow. So if you path follow, find path follow here, that's the next thing we're gonna have to be picking up. So we click on pick, and we're gonna be picking this spline that we created previously. Now if you scroll down your animation, you'll see that our particles are now gonna be moving if we move our animation, but we'll notice that they're spinning and they're not going in the direction that we actually want. So first of all, let's make the spin velocity to 0. So now if we create it, that's gonna we're gonna make them first not to spin, but if we play our animation, you can see that they are going pretty quickly. So the next modifier that we're gonna have to bring in is a slow modifier. So if we type S, we're gonna quickly find slow, we place it in there, and let's maybe, if we just scroll up, we can maybe, not 100, maybe let's make it 90. So that's too much. Let's make it 80. Right, okay, we're gonna have to additionally play with this, but for now let's maybe increase the follow to 0.1, so that will give us some, yeah, so that's exactly what we want. Now the next thing we have to do here is we're gonna have to create, as you saw in the picture, there are some rays, like those are not just the starting points, but there are some rays that are flying around the object. So I'll be bringing in spline parts from the list bottom or the bottom, spline paths. So spline paths, that's what we need. That's the next thing we have to bring in, and we click create, and we set it to trajectories. So now you can see that if we move our animation, that will actually give us those rays that I was talking about at the beginning. So if we spin around, I'll show you what I meant exactly by that. Yeah. So now we'll just have to make our slow, let's make it maybe to slow the animation, let's say maybe 95. And if we play our animation, you can see that those rays are going to actually be going around the building, which is actually how the wind is going to be behaving around the building. So it's not going to just go straight to the building. So some particles are going to go around this way, some particles are going to go around the other way. But the point here is that we can create those rays which we can further render in the animation, but that can be part of some next tutorials. So I'll be now creating the same scenario for the other part of the building, and maybe for the particles that are going above the building. So I'll just speed up this process here so we don't spend too much time doing the same thing again. Basically the process is the same. What we're gonna do is we're gonna create the second plane, and from here not instance, but we'll create a copy. Particles from here are going to be running above the building, and some part of the particles are going to be going around the other part of the building. So let's maybe move everything a little bit this way, so we have a bit clearer representation. Now I'm going to just skip this part, and I'm going to show you what the final product looks like. So as I explained, I just created the two new planes here, and if we play the animation here, we can see that actual particles are going above and around the building, which is actually which are actually representing just those rays actually that are flying around the buildings if we start a wind from this direction. So one thing that you will have to note here, I'll just bring this back, and this you're gonna have to create two new splines. One of them will have to follow. One of them will have to go around the building in the opposite direction. So that's the first spline we created, if you remember. That's the first one. The second one will have to be positioned like this, so the particles are actually going above the building, and the third is just opposite direction. So that is how the final animation should look like. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will be with you very shortly with another video tutorial.